Tim, then Nick.
My instinct on the call was to sort of reflect back on discussions we've had previously about patients who contact NHS Direct fairly shortly after they've had some other hands-on contact, whether we've talked about in the context of previous A&E attendances, but a previous GP within an hour or two of them calling suggests there's something wrong, that they're seeking a further opinion, further advice and so forth, and that I think we've sort of come to a view which hasn't been written into the algorithms yet, that this ought to be a very specific warning flagged up for the health advisor that something more needs to be done. Although I agree that with Louisa that in fact the timescales appear to have been such that it wouldn't make any difference to the lady's the patient's potential outcome. Yeah,
in our training we do train our staff to look at recent call history. In our recent news shot, we brought attention to it in the last release because it's identified patients are sicker at the moment, and the very early immediate call history is important to the patient's journey. This particular call has not been reviewed from the full investigation as from an IFNR has not taken place yet, so the lessons for the members of staff, the immediate lessons have been fed back to them, but the full investigation is still taking place. So those comments I will take back to the panel and feed back to them.
Yes, Tim.
Yeah, the news shot I think absolutely referred to previous contacts with us. I don't think it referred, or at least that didn't come across to me as previous contacts with the GP.
Yes, I beg your pardon, Tim. No, you're quite right. The news shot was about contact with us, but within the training of staff, it's recent contact with any other health professional, and we have a request to the clinical content team to actually have a physical flag within our system when the patient's contacted us within a specific time frame to say they've had contact with us in the last so many hours or days. Yeah.
With any healthcare provider, not just with us. So I think Tim's point is, so this lady saw a GP in the morning.
Yes.
So we would flag that the patient had already been to see a GP and this was therefore a worsening call. And we might therefore treat it differently. Is that
exactly?
Yeah. At the moment, until we're fully integrated with all other providers, that flag will be there for our service. But there is additional enhancement within the training of this must be for all health professionals. It's still currently trained, but we're really refocusing on that because that is a lesson learnt from a number of the serious untoward incidents.
Right, Nick, Ruth, Tim, Louisa. Louisa, was this particular?
No, it's just there's a difference between flirting with a flag and building that into an algorithm where there's a decision at the end. So is that built into an algorithm?
Yes, there are questions in a number of the algorithms, and I will clarify for you, Louisa, the particular ones where they ask, have you had recent contact with a health professional? And if you click or if you answer yes to that, it increases the level of urgency.
Okay, so Ruth, Nick, Tim.
Nick then.
Sorry.
I just do what I'm told. It's fine.
I'm happy to go first, Nick. 2 points from me. One was around whether or not the advisors have a sort of more of a standard script to follow when they ring up and the patient has died, because it felt to me that she didn't really know what to say, and there was this really awkward conversation in which ended, I felt, a bit unsatisfactorily. So first question, Trish, is whether or not they have sort of a script.
No, they don't have a script for that particular aspect.
And then the second thing that was in the back of my mind, having just, sort of being fresh from 111, is I wonder what would have happened with that call under a 111 scenario. So they would have been one transferred to a nurse or not. They may have ended up with a 999 straight from the health advisor. And I might be interested to know if we put that call through pathways and 111, what the outcome would be.
Okay, well, can we encourage you to do that?
Yeah.
Nick?
Listening to the call, I was struck by the factors that might desensitise our own staff and I thought potentially there were two. One was the one that's been highlighted, which is the lack of personal emotional intensity on behalf of the care home staff. The other, though, which I think is it's a question. There seemed to me to be not confusion as such, but there was a certain vagueness about what the nature of the care home was and of the staffing within it. And I mean, it seems to me fairly clear that if you were talking to someone, talking with someone who was a care provider in a home where there were qualified nursing staff present, that would desensitise you to thinking that actually this needed to be escalated, because actually the people on the ground would know that already from their hands-on experience. So it's the extent to which we are clear with our own staff about the nature of different environments. And I think they did establish the person that they were speaking to wasn't a nurse, but I'm not sure that they established that there was no nurse in the care home setting. And I just wonder if that was another area for desensitising, thinking actually this person is in a place of safety, and therefore you might take a slightly different view.
We do have guidance for staff regarding nursing homes and residential homes and the type of staff that are employed. I take the point about the desensitising. You could almost turn it that if there was a registered nurse, the registered nurse in a nursing home would be making the decision to contact a GP.
I mean, this I think was described on the call as a care home.
Yes, it was described.
And I'm honestly not sure whether that's a residential home or that's a nursing home.
Yeah, no, it's a point, and I'll take it away and seek clarification.
Louisa. No, Tim, you were next. I'm sorry, you were in the queue.
Firstly, I don't. Nick has said it much better than me. I'm not sure we gave a good service to the carer. And we talked a lot about the service we gave to the patient. I've got an administrative point. This is my home patch, and if I wanted to, from what I listened to, I know it was encrypted, I could have worked out who that person was, because we left Burton Road on, and the name of the care home on the disc.
But yeah.
And so it's just the administrative point. Can we be extra careful on how we make these secure? Now it's a very long shot.
What is secure, Tim?
I know. But it struck me that.
Okay, I think we've done this before, Tim. We've had a discussion about this. My strong view is that with the encryption, that it is. Once you start deleting content from the conversation, it becomes you lose a lot. And that the encryption and the fact that the other security measures around the disk should enable us to be able to see to hear the whole content. And I'm very firmly of the opinion that we should stick to that unless we have any real worries about the security. And maybe we could talk about that offline.
I think it's a really important point to get straight. First of all, in terms of security, I'm absolutely sure that through the process of encrypting the DVDs and separating passwords and the administrative process we've got in there, there is no lack of security. I think that's quite separate from whether you as a non-executive director feel comfortable that by using your powers of deduction and the happenstance of local circumstances that you might be able to use that information to find. Well, yes, frankly, that is a possibility. Written through the Go Listen campaign will be you as a board member knowing all sorts of things. I can't possibly arrange for staff to only give information that is incapable of being used to deduce things that are confidential. You as a board member will receive information that is completely confidential, and your duty is to make sure that you don't use that in any inappropriate way, which is something that we all understand and accept. So I just didn't want it to be muddled up between lack of security and the fact that we as board members all receive information which is highly personal and highly sensitive, and we use that only for the benefit of what we're here to do and for no other reason.
Okay, you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. An observation.
Yeah.
Lisa.
I'd like to say I find it very difficult to get into them anyway. So it me 2 hours to go and to listen to this.
I agree.
It's very difficult.
I agree.
And just sorry to go on about it, it just concerns me a bit about the sort of algorithm, and that we've got the algorithm, but we also have to make sure that somebody's not desensitised by stuff going on around. And I think my concern particularly about that call was that the same question was asked twice and 2 different answers were given, one of which would have triggered a faster response. And I suppose it's that I'm most concerned about.
And am I right in thinking, Trish, that that's exactly the kind of question that we looked at in detail in relation to the review of this particular call?
Yes.
Yeah. So the review process hasn't finished, it hasn't concluded, and that's exactly the kind of thing that will be picked up. Is that
yes? Through the review, that member of staff will receive exactly that feedback. You asked one question, you asked the same question, repeated it, got different answers. You didn't seek clarification on which was the correct. So the member of staff, through the feedback from the investigation, will have that, and if necessary, receive further training or have further calls reviewed to see if it's a bigger issue.
And I've been on one. I've listened to one of those calls, and I've been very impressed by how thorough that whole investigative process is, and how open it is, and how it's very much around learning and improvement. So.
Yeah. Sue.
Agree with everything that's been said. Just one thing that the fact that we had a priority 3. Individuals told that could be up to 4 hours wait. It was actually 12 hours, something like that, before anybody rang back. Just a couple of questions about that, and you may not be able to answer these, Trish, because I've only just thought about them. Should the health advisor have known that there was a significant wait, potentially in excess of 4 hours, at the point that they said it could be up to 4 hours? But because I thought there is a mechanism to ensure that people know that there's a really long wait in callbacks, and at the point that the person took that phone call and said it's going to be 4 hours, did they know it? Should they have known it? And was it just human nature by saying, well, they didn't want to admit that it could be significantly longer, 8 hours, or, how does the process work?
Yeah. There is very clear guidance to our staff and we instigate the timescales for callbacks through the on-call, the clinical team on-call. There is a script when we are hitting that we won't meet our P2s or there's risk to our P2s, or there is a longer callback for our P3s. Our staff are instructed to start giving a clear indication of realistic callback times.
Yeah.
What may have happened on this call is, at the time before our time scale was given, that was accurate and appropriate, and then as the service demand increases and further calls came in, the priority 1 calls and the priority 2 calls, as you would expect for safety, took precedent over those P3s that were calling. And can I also add that the clinical leads that we have in the service have a further safety net where they are reviewing the clinical content of the queue. So if there was a particular concern regarding a call in the queue, those calls can be identified and picked off in order for the call to be returned back quicker than perhaps is the length of the queue. That may have happened in this case, it may not have happened in this case, but that is an additional safety net within the service.
Can I ask, in terms of the review that we're going to go through,
will
that specific issue be considered?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So we can see that when it
Yes.
goes through.
Okay. Liz, and then I'm going to bring it to a close.
Just a quick point. This is a very similar conversation to one that I've had before at the East of England Ambulance Trust, where they actually send emergency care practitioners out proactively to do visits with residential and nursing homes in the area. And I just wonder, in terms of stakeholder engagement, whether that's something else that we can work with local ambulance trusts on.
Okay, thank you. That's a good point. So, who will pick that up?
Ruth and I.
Ruth and Trish. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. I always think it's worth spending time on this. It's real engagement with the real service. Yep. Sorry it went on a bit long, but we all want our lunch.